Hello, I'd like to welcome you to our training today. I'm excited to be with you. First, I would like to introduce myself. Um, my name is Bruce Eckman, and I am the President and CEO and the founder of EasyNet Tools Incorporated. Over the years, we've been in business for a long time, and over the years, we've worked with literally thousands of customers doing websites and internet marketing. And over the years, we've learned a lot from those people that we've worked with. And the Launch to Success program is a series of videos that we're producing to try to share some of those things that we've learned, the things that work, and in a lot of cases, the things that don't work. So I'm excited to be with you and to be your host today and your presenter on this training seminar. Today's training seminar is titled Selecting the Best Domain Name, something that I think a lot of times we take for granted, but is actually incredibly important to your website success and to your online marketing success. So I'm glad to have you here and to be able to share that information with you. The first information that I'd like to talk about with regards to this is I'd like to just kind of cover just what is a domain name. And a domain name, there's some misconceptions out there, and hopefully I can kind of clear some of those misconceptions up. First, let me give you a little bit of a disclaimer. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to really simplify this. And so in some cases what I'm telling you may not be 100% correct, but it's going to help you to understand how things work, and it's going to give you the concepts of what a domain name is and how it works, even though it may not be absolutely perfect, and I'm not giving you all the details because I have simplified it so much. But for our presentation today, I think that it will be very good information for you. So first, in explaining what a domain name is, I think that a good thing that we can sort of liken it to is buildings and homes and other things on a city block. If you think of all across the country, we have homes and businesses and buildings all over it. And if those were just out there and there was, I mean, how would we find them? How would we separate them out? How would we know where they are? And so we've come up with a system, and everywhere you go, every building is going to have some kind of a number on it. And so we've come up with this numbering system that helps us to be able to locate any building or any home or any office anywhere in the country. And so everything is numbered. And if you have an apartment in an apartment building or a business suite on an office building, they're even going to go inside that building, and they're going to break those down into different apartment numbers. So anyone will be able to find you, so you'll have your mail will be able to be delivered to you just by listing your street address and your apartment or your suite number. Now, the Internet is very similar to the same situation. And I don't know, there are all over the Internet. You think about how many buildings and homes and things there are throughout the country. If you think about how many devices there are in the Internet, it would be interesting to actually know what that number was and compare it to the number of buildings out there. But I've almost got to believe that it's going to be at least pretty close, if not more, Internet devices than there are buildings on the planet. And so somehow we've got the same problem with all these Internet devices out there that we have with houses. We need to be able to locate them and know where they are so we can get information to them or get information from them. And so we essentially do the same thing. We give every device on the Internet an address. In this case, we call it an IP address. And so it doesn't matter, every device, whether it's a laptop or a computer or a server or a tablet or a phone or whatever, every device out there has got to have an address. And so everyone is assigned an IP address. Okay, so those addresses, though, from a human standpoint, aren't very helpful to us. They don't really tell us where things are. They're these long numbers. Okay, now if you look at internet devices like phones and those kinds of things, typically those only have one user. If you look at a server, most of the time when you have a website, you're actually going to be sharing space on a server with a number of other people. So just like the apartment complex has to give an apartment number or a suite number in an office building, we do the same thing on servers, and we have to designate, an area or a space or a directory for a specific customer, and so we number those as well, and there are different strategies for doing that. So if you think of a server information where you'd put your website, you're going to have the server's IP address, and then you're going to have some kind of an identifier that will tell you a number or something that will tell you where the specific web page is or where that person's account is. So that way we can find anything on the internet. At least if we know what the address is, we can find it on the internet. Now, most of us are not really too into remembering long strings of numbers and characters and being able to walk around. How would you like to say, oh yeah, go take a look at my website at 122.133.80.12/x3056. I can't even say it in one breath. 39. People would probably, their eyes would glaze over and they would say, yeah, right, I will visit that someday after I'm dead or something. And so that doesn't work for us very well. In the world, when we know people, a lot of times rather than using, a long name, here I've got a name that I made up, William Henry James, okay? That's a pretty long name. And so we're not going to call him that. So a lot of time we use what's called a nickname, and we may just call him Bill, okay? And so that's easy, and if you're, if you can, hey Bill, that's a lot easier than, shouting out over the crowd, hey William Henry James. So we're used to doing that. And so in the internet world, we've done the same thing. We take that long address, the IP address, and in the case of websites on a server, the address, the suite number, if you will, and we can condense that down into a nickname, and we call that a domain name. And so really, for all intents and purposes, a domain name is really nothing more than a nickname, or a shortened thing that we can use instead of using the real address of the computer. And so we don't want to have to worry about that. Now, if you were so inclined and you wanted to go out to your browser and you could type in the IP address and that long string of information, and it would actually go and it would find it directly. But it's a lot easier for us to remember a name. Rather than giving somebody that long string, you can say, hey, go visit my website at billscats.com. I've got the greatest collection of cat pictures you ever saw in your life. And we can do that. People can remember it. They can go type it in easily. It's a lot less, or a lot easier, so you don't have to, so you're not going to make mistakes when you do that. So anyway, if you think of a domain name as really being nothing more than just a nickname, so let's talk for a minute about how that actually works, because somehow we've got to be able to translate that nickname into the real address. So when we want to get a domain name, the first thing that we need to do is we need to figure out what we want it to be, and we need to put it somewhere so the internet can find it, okay? There are a number of companies out there that are called registrars. And these registrars are basically a giant card catalog for the whole internet. But what they do is they keep all of the information. They keep the domain names, or the nicknames, we'll call them here. They keep the information about who owns it, so nobody else can get it. And they keep the actual address where it can be found, or where the information is about that specific domain name, okay? So in this case, we're using a fictitious site called billscats.com, and the registrar would tell us that the information for that could be found at 122.133.80.12, and you don't have to worry about that at all. You don't have to remember that. It has it in its card catalog, and it will look it up for you. Now, there are a number of registers out there. You've probably heard of GoDaddy. That's the one that we use. We like GoDaddy, but they're a registrar, and their main thing is just keeping a card catalog of all of these addresses, okay? So what happens, let's look at what happens, okay? You bring up your web browser, and you want to type in the domain name. Now, there are really two places that you can do this, and I see a lot of people make mistakes when I'm talking with them on the phone and I get them to look up my website. But a lot of times people will type the domain name into the search bar rather than the address bar. And so what they're doing, they actually look it up on Google, and if it finds it, then you can click on it and go to it. But rather than the search bar, you really should type a domain name just into what's called the address bar, okay? And so that's, in this particular case, in my Firefox browser, you can see it's up in the top corner up there is where I type in my domain name. Now, if I typed it into Google, it would probably find it, and then I could click on it and go to it. It takes 2 steps. And if for some reason it wasn't Google, then you wouldn't find it. So it's always better to type it into the actual address bar and go directly to the site. Now, when you type the address into the address bar, whether it's Firefox or Explorer or whichever browser you happen to be using, it will go through a little process. And the great thing is for us is that we don't have to worry about that. We never see it. We never know about it. We don't have to worry about it. It just does it. But I think it pays to understand what it's doing so you make sure and have all of your ducks lined up in a row so everything works like it should. Sometimes when we get people registering domain names, they don't understand the process, and so they haven't completed all of the steps. And I'm really simplifying it here for you, and I'm, like I say, just so you understand what the steps are to get people there, okay?